So we've showed you actually a bunch of Kentik, and while I don't prefer it, most people prefer the dark theme. So we've been using that, which looks more like Grafana, which people really like. So I use the white theme. But actually, speaking of Grafana, we have a lot of customers that, again, we really don't want to only be a network group tool, where there's DevOps people using it who their world is mostly metrics, application metrics, server metrics, CPU, disk temperature. So we've actually worked with Grafana to do a Kentik, a plugin. So we're a native data source to Grafana. So you can take your, we can look at, well, devices. You can take, it's really, in some sense, it's a source AS. It's a subset of the kind of filtering and querying that you can do in Kentik, but it's actually just translating this to the Kentik API, making queries, and these are things that you can then put on a dashboard and load up against your application metrics, against your server metrics. And the challenge is if you try to build aggregates, even just aggregates of flow into InfluxDB, Prometheus, things like that, just the number of unique source IPs you have over a period of time can blow up those metrics databases, which are not really designed for that kind of thing. And we also, this is something we help drive them to add, actually now you can have filters in a much more simple way than you used to have to change the query in Grafana to be able to do it. So from a DevOps perspective, one of the things is we really look at what are the integrations we can do. Splunk is another integration that'll be coming for the security group, but to make this data useful, so you also don't have to have 5 systems storing all the same data, which is sort of silly. The other thing that I wanted to show just briefly is actually a couple things. So we're in the demo account here. I will show you a system. Are there any folks here who know what port 119 is? Usenet. Anyone remember Usenet? So
familiar.
Yeah, so before, when I was starting Kentik, I ran a Usenet company, which gave us tens of gigabits of traffic to look at and all these fun problems we've been talking about. And on this server, which is doing right now, we have an Intel bug with the kernel, so it's doing half that number, 2.3 gigabits per second. We're running an agent that is watching PCAP, generating flow with performance data. And actually, if there's DNS queries, it's pulling it out. We didn't add NTP because there's only like 5 people that remember how to run Usenet, so we don't do that. And you can see it's about 16%. We have 2 versions, nprobe, which you can, from NTOP, about 30%, 16% of a single core. This is a Xeon E5520, embarrassingly old machine, but works just fine, so why kill it? Embarrassingly, in front of that, we have a SOUP 723BXL catalyst, which is in the CEO cabinet. Because my fingers know IOS. Wow. So I like commit confirm, but my fingers know IOS. So that data goes to Kentik. And in Kentik, if we want to look at what's going on with that, we can select the device. And that device happens to be an NTP3A nprobe. And we can do the same sort of things. We can say, show me the AS number by bits per second, and it'll spread that out. But we also unlock other dimensions. So not just bits per second, packets per second, but also latency. So if I want to look at what's the latency towards the client or towards the server or the time to first byte, I can split it up that way too. And now I can see by AS what's the actual latency of the traffic, of the connections. If I want to see if that server is now doing DNS queries, and I think I might have DNS response issues, I can actually, that's all data that's now in Kentik all populated and no integration required. So right now it looks like the DNS queries are fine. So same kind of thing, we actually run Kentik using Kentik to look at what's going on the infrastructure side. And we didn't test this with limited resolution displays. But we have a dashboard that when we think there might be network problems or application problems, we load up and it runs across all of the Kentik devices. And it lets us look at things like retransmits, server latency latency by device and port. So we can say, if I zoom in on that, we can actually look at how are the applications performing? What's the time to first byte from the different servers? And then again, it's standard Kentik, so you can do all the same kind of drill downs. If I go back to the dashboard, retransmits or latency by country is a big one. Really getting at is it the network, right? I'm seeing a problem. Do I see any issues that look like they're across the network or across the application? Because when we install our agent, which we have on all of our servers, we can also look at DNS queries, looking for strange things there. If you run an enterprise network and you actually instrument your recursive name servers, you will find it just stands out at you which of your machines are infected. Because a lot of these machines are making 64-byte hex-like, you just look at it and see it. So you can actually filter out most of the normal stuff by regexp, and up pops all the machines that you need to take care of. We're going to have an analytics about that, which is, what is owned section of Kentik, but that's coming. So just wanted to show briefly that it's not just routers and switches. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, so customer with a storage system, and what I want to do is use your multi-display here, your TCP retransmits. I want to see throughput to the customer at the server side, okay, at the storage system side, and what I should expect to see based on what I used Wireshark to go figure out.
Yeah.
And I'd like a tool like this instead of having to go dig in Wireshark for this, is I want to see it start up and I want to see it running at 10 gigs until it hits the wall, and then the throughput drops to like 100K. And I want to see the burst of TCP retransmits that already occur at the time that it hits the wall. I get that?
Yes.
Is that what I'm capable of doing here?
The question is, where are you getting that data from? So,
well, I'd assume that there's a flow collector.
The clients of the storage system, and if you monitor them all, then in aggregate you see the same thing as you would see at the storage system. If that storage system is a closed box, it's not something it's not Linux, you can put agent on.
I was thinking flow data.
Then you would need to have a tap or span in front. Please tap, span causes problems.
Now I can use PCAP, which is what I eventually used.
Right. But so what we do is a summary of the PCAP. So we have an agent that's free that runs on servers but also runs on a sensor. So you can take a $2,000 machine with an Intel Ethernet card, and if it sees a tap, then yes, it'll generate the flow to Kentik with the retransmit info that your switches and routers don't see, because they're packet sampling, they're not flow sampling. So as we do sampling with this kind of data, we're still sampling, but we're flow hashed sampling. It's the only way you can look at latency and retransmit and things like that. And then the data is here. Now, this is a next year thing, because again, we don't have enough customers that have this sensor, that sensor. It might be an NPulse box, it might be an NTOP box, but we'll definitely, our roadmap is you could see it here, you could drill down and you can click a get PCAP button, and it'll reach out to the sensor if there is one, and actually go get the PCAP and feed it to Wireshark. So we do have people doing storage debugging. If it's converged, if it's IP, because we're not really doing FCOE, we can build an adapter for, we're not. And we do have people that do it by looking across all the clients of the storage, and then you don't need to instrument the storage box.
Well, they were doing a single client as a proof of concept.
Oh, okay, yeah. So then that would be easy. You just run the,
And they came to us going, why is this so darn slow?
Run the agent on there and see it. But we're not capturing every packet, it's a summary of it, so you'll see the retransits, but you'll still need to go to the flight recorder for detailed debugging. The other thing we're not really capturing, and we're not really in our roadmap, is down to the microsecond network pathology is something that's not on our next year roadmap. There are things that do that. Corville's very good at that. A lot of those tools, though, don't understand BGP, they don't understand the internet. For hop by hop, your forwarding devices being strange, or you think you've got a NIC problem, that's something where you're not really going to use Kentik in the short term.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. And in Kentik, if I look at any of these things right now, the devices that we're actually looking at are So I've got filters that I can have, but also right now, all devices are specified. But if I pop that up, now I have a lot of devices here. If I wanted to look at our storage devices start with S0, if you name things well, and we have tags for devices coming, then I can just say select all of those, and then they get all selected. So we try to make it easy to look at what kind of device to what kind of device as I run the infrastructure. And I think we're low on time, so I'll let Jim back to do alerting. But if you guys have any other questions, I think we have 10 minutes. One meta comment. We are working very hard over the next couple quarters to make the tool even more useful for DevOps people who don't know what any kind of network anything is. And that's where service health dashboards and, we're really working with our customers to figure that out, because we have some companies where we have aggressively server and application operations using us, but it's definitely true that when you start talking about a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, it's beyond. So that's why we did the Grafana integration. And really, we are, I would say less than 50%, but more than 25% of our customers have the DevOps groups using it. And it's really something that I think is key to saving a lot of time and frustration for everybody to drive that adoption. But it's some other kinds of visualizations. Maybe it's integrating with Datadog if that's what people use, to drive that. But we think it's very important, not just for the core network folks, but for everybody else to get value from what's running on that side of the infrastructure.